YouTube. But good morning to our KLYN people. If you're just tuning in, it's 10 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock. It's 20 degrees out there. Weather report coming up for us at the bottom of the hour. We just finished hearing Lee Greenwood singing God Bless America. Prayer line is open. The Tuesday number, 425-3717. It's available to you right now. It's not just if you have any pressing needs, but yes, it is for that. Also, you have a testimony. You have something that happened to you. And I'm a big believer is that when something good happens, when you know that God has done something in your life, you just got to tell somebody. You just got to get out there and you just have to seal. And for me, it's the sealing the deal. It's out there to say, okay, I got it, and I'm going to keep it. And I think that's helpful in our lives. Anyway, we are starting a new book this morning. We are starting 1 Samuel chapter 1. Let me bring that up on the screen for you there. 1 Samuel is a whole new transition in the history of Israel. It starts off, okay, with the birth of Samuel. And we see a lot about Samuel's life, but the transition is really from the Judges, which is the book that we just left. Well, we went to Judges, then we went to Ruth, and we know that Ruth historically is in that time of the Judges. Well, Samuel was pretty much the last judge/prophet for that era. From here, we're going to see the kings. You get up to about chapter 8 or so, and that's when the kings get introduced in this whole lineage of kings, which I think we're going to find out was not God's perfect will for Israel. And I think it's very, very, concise. And the understanding of it, them having a king was not God's perfect will, but they did anyway. And, if I understand that properly, which I'm not saying that I do, is that God makes the best of it. And God still blesses them. God still deals with them. It's not like he says, okay, well, you've rejected me. The heck with you guys. No, he's in covenant with these people. And we understand that God is a covenant maker. And then when he makes covenant, he's going to keep it. He's going to keep it. He's going to say, I am going to be there no matter what happens. And all they had, and we saw this in the book of Judges. You remember over and over again. For me, that was one of the main points of the book of Judges, is that every time that they would cry out to the Lord, he would be there for them. That there's, and that's the nature of God, and that's why we read the Bible, is to see how God interacts with us and how we should interact with Him in this relationship. If we don't get that part of it, we're missing one of the main intents of the Bible. It's not just history. It's not just some type of ritualistic instructions. It goes to a relationship between the Creator and His creation. And the crown of his creation is man and woman. I guess I should say that just to make sure that you don't think, no, as a generic term, man. All of humanity, there you go, that's a better word. All of humanity is the crown of creation. And what we see how does God deal? What is it that God's doing? Why was there a flood? Well, because humanity was getting corrupted to the point of no return. And before that happened, God had to do something. Why were the Midianites and the Canaanites and all of these people that were occupying the area of the Middle East, why were they under judgment? Because of the corruption that was there. It was something that was coming in to the genetic DNA, the bloodline of humanity that was going to bring destruction. It had the potential of bringing complete destruction onto the crown of God's creation. And God was going to let it happen because God so loved the world. And he's not a guy that's going to turn his back and walk away, say, I'll just make another one. I'm God and I can do whatever I want to do. Poof, you're gone. Let's start it all over again. So we're looking at Samuel. We're looking at the birth of Samuel. Very, very interesting story. Kind of reminds us a little bit here about Samson. because the Nazirite vow is going to come into play again. So we've seen Samson, we're seeing Samuel now. One of these days we'll see a little bit more about John the Baptist. All of them had that Nazirite vow from birth in their lives. It wasn't just a temporary, seasonal thing. It was more than that. So, beautiful book. Let's see how many chapters we have on 1 Samuel. Let's see if I can find. There's the mouse. There you go. 31 chapters. So you know how we roll here. Let's see how long it's going to take us to get through this book. Now, there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim. Say that fast 3 times. Where do you come from? Well, I come from Zophim. I'm sure it was RZ or something like that, Ramzoff or something like that. The homies over there in that time of the year had to shorten this thing up a little bit. There had to be some type of, just kidding. Now, there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zoph, an Ephraimite. So let's look at our map if we can real quick and see, where is it? We should still have it up. Where was he from? He was from Ephraim. Let's see what part of the country he was from. Right here. Okay, pretty much right there, smack dab in the middle of the Promised Land. You have the Dead Sea south and east of it. You have the what's the name of the river that comes down over here? The big river that comes between the Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, also to the east. And right there is the land of Ephraim, and that's where this man comes from that we are introduced right now here into the book. His name is Elkanah. And as always, well, not as always, but, these people were very, very disciplined to know their family line. It was important to know that you could trace yourself back to Abraham. It was very important that you could trace yourself into one of his, his grandsons, his great-grandsons, when it comes down to the 12 tribes, to the family that was part of the tribe that you were part of. This was important. If you were of the son of Levi, if one of Abraham's great-grandsons, whose name was Levi, you could trace your lineage to there. Your potential priest, if you went through Aaron. But if not, you didn't go through. You still had a responsibility as a Levite to take on that holy calling that came unto them. And I love where the book says, as we've been through that portion, that instead of the Levites having a natural inheritance in Israel, God was their inheritance. That's beautiful. How many of you want to incorporate that into your life? Because you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we're just a passing through this world. One of these days, as I was saying earlier, maybe before we started Facebook, one of these days, the day's coming. One of these days, it's going to be judgment time. I want to be ready for that, and I want you to be ready for that also. I don't want to waste this life. I don't want you to waste this life either. We got to let bygones be bygones, as the old saying goes. We got to say, okay, well, I did that and I wasted that, but that's it's a new day, and that's a beautiful thing of covenant that God makes with us and is able to transform the years. The Bible says that the caterpillar, the cankerworm, the palmer worm have eaten. The locust is eaten. God says, He says, I can take care of that. I can take care of your past. So we are introduced to Elkanah. He had 2 wives. Always interesting stories. Notice how it's like Book of Ruth, man. Interesting stories. You would expect one of these days somebody's going to make a movie about the birth of Samuel if they haven't already. So much here. Elkanah had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah. The name of the other was Peninnah. Peninnah, I guess that's a bit. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. So, you're starting to see the setup over here already. Okay? Having children, women having children in those days was the badge of honor. That was stripes on your shoulders. The kids, especially sons. The more sons you had, the more you could hold your head up high in the market. That's why when we get down to Abraham, Isaac, then Jacob, and the 12 sons that Jacob had, Israel had 12 sons. Of course, it was from 4 wives. Actually, 2 wives, 2 concubines. So Elkanah has 2 wives, Hannah, Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. So here we are, not only being introduced to another, and it's coming, it hasn't come, but I'm just getting ahead of myself a little bit, talking about Nazirite vow. We have another woman who is barren. Can you think of anybody else that we have gone through in the books that we have covered since we left Genesis 1:1? A couple of years ago, probably, or so. Do we remember anybody else who just might have been barren? How about Abraham's wife, Sarah? So it's good company, even though it wasn't good for their cultural standing. But when God wants to do something, ladies and gentlemen, He does something. This man went up from his city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Yahweh hosts, the Lord of hosts of Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord Yahweh, were there. So Elkanah went up every year to Shiloh where the tabernacle was. Remember when we came out of the promised land, I believe the name of the initial town that they set up the tabernacle was Gilgal. Wasn't that the name when they just crossed the line, across the Jordan? And then from there, they constructed it in Shiloh, and it stayed in Shiloh for a long time. Eventually, it's going to end up in Jerusalem, but we'll get into that story one of these days. You just stay tuned. We'll cover that. This man went up for a city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Also, the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. So we see that Eli was the presiding high priest, and his sons, and all of these are of the lineage of Aaron within the family of Levi. They're priests of the Lord. Whenever, we'll talk about Hophni and Phinehas and maybe even Eli a little bit more. And whenever the time came for Elkanah to make an offering, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. So Peninnah, she had a good family through Elkanah. So they go up to Shiloh. They go up to sacrifice to the Lord. And Elkanah would make sure that all of his family, his fruitful wife and their children had something to give to the Lord. It's kind of like when you get at church, just before you get to church, and you give a couple of bucks to the kid and say, okay, put this in the offering at children's church or something like that. He would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he would give a double portion. Yeah, I know. I was the same way. I was thinking, well, Hannah ain't going to get nothing. Hannah ain't going to get nothing. She ain't going. But to Hannah, he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, although the Lord Yahweh had closed her womb. So, I mean, let's go back to Rebecca, Rachel, some of these people that, they did. Yeah. Remember Leah? Remember Leah and her sister? Leah's having all kinds of kids and her sister isn't. Caused a lot of problems. Got a lot of problems in the household it caused. So Hannah would get a double portion, for he loved Hannah. All the Lord had closed her womb. So he's not treating her mean. He's not, say, should have never married that chick. No, he loves her, man. There's a lot of things I'm thinking of about the book of Genesis here. I just can't remember the particulars. So if I don't remember the particulars, I wouldn't get into it. But we've been in situations like this before. Because it was, let's see, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. When Jacob went to the land of his forefathers, remember he fell in love with Rachel? And Rachel's father pulled a sneaky, we call it here now, we have a new term at Cornerstone Church, Jehovah Sneaky. 30 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock, let's look at the weather report. We've been talking a lot about weather this morning because the potential of something coming in our way looks like it's pretty good. One of the best chances we've had all winter long. Partly cloudy today, scattered snow showers, high around 47, south wind 7 to 18, gusts up to 25 miles per hour, 40% chance of precipitation, new snow accumulation of less than half an inch is possible. You say, dang, half an inch. I mean, I can take it out of my freezer. Tonight, cloudy with snow. Low around 16. Northeast wind 9 to 16. 80% chance. New snow accumulation around 4 inches. Wednesday, partly cloudy. Slight chance of snow. High around 38. With east wind at 13, 20% chance precipitation, another half an inch is possible. And then on Thursday, partly cloudy, 20% chance of snow, high around 39, with northwest wind at 14 miles per hour. But really, this is going to come in this afternoon, according to the National Weather Service, and probably start sometime tonight, and could be chances that we're out plowing the parking lots tomorrow morning so that we can sell coffee. Some of you people know what I'm talking about there. Most of you do anyway. Anyway, let's get back into 1 Samuel as we just finished our expanded weather report for you. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, and her rival also provoked her severely to make her miserable because the Lord Yahweh had closed her womb. So Peninnah made sure that she was going to let Hannah know that she was the one that was bearing children from Elkanah. I was thinking of some other stuff, but it's another little axioms there to give you, but I didn't. Anyway, to Hannah he would give a double portion, but Peninnah made sure that she was going to walk by Hannah and say, ha, 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 ha. Her rival also provoked her severely to make her miserable. So it was, year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, that she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. So, that's kind of the, family issues. somebody, anybody there to help out with some fun family issues. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? I mean, this is going on every year. Year by year, verse 7 tells us. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? Elkanah trying to make her feel better, and, he loves her very much. She's the apple of his eye, and he says, it doesn't matter. It don't matter to me. My wife has looked at me many times and said, you know what, it doesn't matter to me. That's not important. And it just changes everything. I mean, I wanted to give her the Cadillac. I wanted to give her the BMW. She says, it doesn't matter to me that much. Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? Here we are in Shiloh again, and you are fasting, and you are, well, she's being provoked by and I'm sure Elkanah knows what's going on. Try to keep peace. We probably should have some, imagine a family counselor, and I doubt if they had, maybe the priests, maybe the Levites were family counselors but imagine being a family counselor with a guy who has 2, 3, 4, 5 wives. Oh my God. We call it enredo, where everything is all jumbled up together. It's kind of like an extension cord when you take it up, and you have to just really pick that apart or a hose or something like that. Man, imagine 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives. Some of these guys, I don't understand that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we don't understand it in our culture. It's something that we don't, practice, and thank the Lord. Then Elkanah, why? Am I not better than you? So Hannah arose after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord. And we know Eli was the high priest in those days, sitting on the seat of Aaron. Aaron, Moses' brother, first high priest in the Mosaic covenant. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord Yahweh and wept in anguish. So, Hannah, man, she's got a petition before the Lord. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, as believers, I think many of us, we know this. There's things that happen into our lives that, we just got to get breakthrough. We need She needed a breakthrough in her life. She wanted a child. That's what, above all things, she had a great family life. She had except for her, what would we call her? Stepwife? No, I don't know. What would they call her? Wasn't her daughter-in-law, for sure. Wife-in-law? I mean, sister, I don't know how you would say that. She was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord Yahweh all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. Now, to me, there's an interesting principle over here. What is the one thing that she wants above all things? She wants a child. And if you want to get specific, if you're going to ask, you might as well ask largely. And she wants a son. So there she is in bitterness of soul. Weeping in anguish is what verse 10 tells us. She makes a vow. She says, God, if you give me a son, I'm going to give him back to you. There's a principle about giving God the best that you have. That letting God give you something, and then you are able to give it back to him and say, God, thank you, but it's yours. Let's start off with our lives. I think that's a great way of starting off. That God has given us life. And in this life that we're living, are we able to give it back unto God the same way that Hannah is praying to the Lord, said, you know what, if you answer my prayer, I'm going to give it right back to you. And I can think of a couple of other places in the Bible to where this is turns into more than just a once in a while thing. It is a principle in life. You give it back to God and then watch God work with it. Put it in the hand of the master. But it always drills down to my personal life, to me personally, my heart, offering my body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to the Lord. O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli watched her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. So there she is in Shiloh. Eli sitting on the seat of Aaron. She's praying in her heart, but her lips are moving. And Eli is looking at her. Therefore, Eli thought she was drunk. Now, my estimation, Eli wasn't the sharpest tack in the priestly drawer. He's a descendant of Aaron. He's sitting on the seat. He's got the call because, of where he's at, who he's at, sure. But, just a little dull, I think. I think that old Eli was just a little dull. We'll hopefully there'll be some facts that can back me up a little bit as we get there. But to just go with me there. So Eli, looking at this woman, her lips are moving. She's praying in her heart. She's bitter, crying, going through the whole thing and praying out to God. And the priest thinks she's drunk. So Eli said to her, "How long will you be drunk? Put away wine from you." How dare you come to the tabernacle all wasted, you, with your flask in your purse or whatever, how long? Put your wine away from you. But Hannah answered and said, "No, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord." So, she has to explain her situation to Eli. She says, "No, man, smell my breath, priest. There's a sorrow in my spirit. It's not my drunkenness. It's my hurt. It's my pain." Hannah answered and said, "No, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord." So there was an emptying of herself, which is a very good place to find ourselves in prayer. So I'm going to tell you what, when you pray to the Lord God of creation, of redemption, to the God of the resurrection, that God that we know, that God that we serve, and you begin to pour out, you empty yourself, God will fill it with His Spirit. I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I've drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman. For out of the abundance of my complaint and grief, I have spoken until now. So she has to explain to the high priest, no. There's a pain that I have. There's a need. There's a petition that I have. Out of the abundance of my complaint and grief, I have spoken until now. Then Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition which you have asked of him." If I was Eli right about there, I'd be a little embarrassed. I'd be a little, judge this chick wrong, man. Here I am calling her, that she's drunk, calling her a drunk, and she's got a bigger need. Missed that one. Then Eli answered and says, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition which you have asked of him." And she said, "Let your maidservant find favor in your sight." So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. She heard a word. Eli, he's prophesying. Does he know he's prophesying? Not sure that he knows that he's prophesying. But he says, "May the God of Israel grant your petition which you have asked of him." She discerns this, I believe, as a word from the Lord. "Let your maidservant find favor in your sight." So the woman went her way and ate. Her face was no longer sad. What did she have, ladies and gentlemen? She have a child? Is she taking a son home? No, she's taking a promise home. The promise is like a seed. When you when you bombard that seed with your faith, when God gives you a word, when the scriptures began to open up to you personally and you discern that it's God that is speaking to you, it's like Ezekiel. We've shared this testimony in the night services that we've had both here and also at Victory Life Church. When this young man, Ezekiel, here in town, decided that he wanted to go to Colorado, and he's been so frustrated getting out of Vegas that he thought, but God gave him a word from Acts chapter 1. It says, do not leave Jerusalem until you're endued with a power from on high. Well, last week he got the power from on high. So I'm going to tell him that things are going to work out in his life, that things are going to start clicking. And God was holding things back for a reason. And now this woman, she's got a word. She's got that seed. And all you need to do is get the seed of God's word and mix it with faith. Then they arose early in the morning, worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived, bore a son, called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord. So let's look at the name Samuel, because it's going to be a principal character. According to Hitchcock's dictionary, Samuel means heard of the Lord, heard of God, asked of God. Hawker, let's see, these guys getting into a lot more than what we want to get. Those are more in-depth. So we'll just go to Hitchcock's there, and we'll say that the name Samuel means heard of God, asked of God, something to do with that. So the name's attached to the situation that it all happened. I asked, and God heard. So it came to pass, verse 20, in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord. And you know that she's been asking for a long time. And God's timing, let me just cover a little bit here. God's timing is always perfect. If we would just allow his timing to ferment in our lives. That's the best thing I can think of right now. We would just allow the timing of God. Just wait for God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not upon your own understanding in all your ways. And that's exactly what Hannah's doing. She's trusting in God. Now, the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, not until the child is weaned, then I will take him that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever. Next year it's time to go again. Last year she had a word. This year, when it's time to go 12 months later, she's got a son. The seed, the promise, has become a reality in her life. And she doesn't go this year because she's made a vow unto the Lord. And she can't take a child, let's say that he's about 3 months older, so it's too early to drop him off and say, okay, Eli, he's your responsibility now. And, little brokenness in her heart, I guess, leaving him. Not until the child is weaned, then I will take him that he may appear before the Lord. And she's not holding on to it. She's just waiting for that time. Just the same way she waited for the time to have a child. So Elkanah, her husband, said to her, do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word. I know exactly what I would do if I was Eli. I said, listen, you don't bring him here till he's potty trained. And he's got to be fully. If he's not potty trained, you don't drop him off. That was one of the rules. I'm not going to be changing diapers. That is something else. But That's not. I'm not saying that is Eli's situation here, or Hannah's, or Elkanah's. But Elkanah says to her, "Do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word." Then the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, and the child was young. I don't think it was maybe the next year. I mean, I don't know how old he was here. Maybe it's going to tell us, but I'm not telling you. I don't think he was just 2 years old then. Because we skip a year because he hadn't been weaned yet. By the second year, he was probably weaned. But I'm sure that there was some time before they actually present Samuel, the asked of God, heard of God man. Do what all seems best. When she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, and the child was young. 3 bulls, I would imagine the 3 bulls was very, very expensive in those days. The ephah of flour, one thing. A skin of wine, okay, that's those. But 3 bulls? Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, "O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to the Lord." He says, "I don't know if you remember me or not, Eli, but a few years back, I was here praying. And you told me that God was going to grant my petition. Here it is. Oh, my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to the Lord for this child. I prayed and asked. The Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore, I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord." Say they worship the Lord there. So, right now I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you're going to bring a young child to I guess this wasn't an uncommon thing. Did Eli have to have a school for these children? I don't think it was just an uncommon thing, Therefore I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. So they worship the Lord there. Verse 1, chapter 2. And Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation." And Hannah got everything that she wanted. The joy comes into her life. There's a sense of completeness in her life. One son was all it took. One son who she is going to dedicate to the Lord, which had to have been a tough. Imagine you praying for something and finally you get it, and then you hear that small still voice that says, "Now give it back to me." Oh God. Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord." I mean, I'm a blessed woman now. Nobody going to look down at me at the marketplace anymore because I rejoice in your salvation. No one is holy like the Lord. Look at the praise. Look at that wellspring of worship that's coming out of her mouth because God has answered her prayer. No one is holy like the Lord. And this young child, going to grow up to be a mighty man of God. He was going to be an excellent example of a man of God. Samuel stands in a class with many others in the Old and the New Testament as people that stood in their days. I think you're going to like Samuel. I think you're going to think he's a pretty nice guy. One of those people that sometimes we should model our lives after, like Joseph. I really like Joseph from the book of Genesis. No one is holy like the Lord, for there is none beside you, nor is any rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let no arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is the God of knowledge, and by him his actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken, and those who stumble are girded with strength. Ho, ho, ho. Hey there, Penina. I got one now, too, and I'm giving them to the Lord. Well, you guys are over there getting in trouble. My son's he's going to be somebody. No one is holy. Well, let's see. My heart rejoices, the horn is my smile. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. No one is holy like the Lord. There is none beside you. There is not any rock like our God. Talk no more very proudly. Let no arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is the God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken. Those who stumble are girded with strength. Those who are full have hired themselves out for bread, and the hungry have ceased to hunger. Even the barren have borne 7, and she who has many children has become feeble. The Lord kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up. Tables have been turned. And the blessing of God makes one rich. And there's a richness that Hannah sees in her life because of this one son. You said, well, isn't she going to have any more? Isn't she going? I don't know. Let's follow it verse by verse, chapter by chapter, like it might tell us, it might not. But for her, this was the fulfillment of the desires of her heart. And the Bible talks about God giving you the desires of your heart. I guess we have to watch out with what we desire for. Is probably the big question when it goes along with that. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, and the hungry have ceased to hunger. So things have changed. The tables have changed. Very interesting in my regard here to see what God has done and what God is doing in this woman's life and what her whole aspect of understanding how God is the one that has done these things in her life. I'm checking we got a good group with us today. Brianna, Corrine and Mike, Debbie, Andrea and Tommy, Jody and Joyce. Good morning, all you people. Let's play a song. Let's get us up to the top of the hour, and we'll check out weather conditions outside. 20 o'clock in the morning. You're listening to KLYN-LP. It is a Tuesday morning, the 25th day of January. Up 1 degree in the last hour. A whole degree, man. Yeah, we got 1 degree. It's 21 out there. Humidity is at 39%, and we expect that to go up this afternoon, later in the afternoon. Barometric pressure is 29.41 inches. We are in the book of Samuel. 1 Samuel today, starting off a new section on our Bible study. You know, we went on Facebook I believe when we were at the end of Ezekiel. That's when we started broadcasting this and actually chronicling it. So I'm interested in going all the way back to all the way to the book of Ezekiel and kind of having a full biblical program from cover to cover on this, even though, like I tell you, we started. Anyway, let's see who else. Debbie showed up. Darlene. Darlene showed up. Debbie is there already. And thank you, all of our people that are on our YouTube and our Facebook channel, people that can get it within their own areas, or, some of these people anymore, some of these young ones, they don't even have radios. They're not even interested about that. So let's get back on to I was looking at a news report from Charisma about the March for Life that was held last week in Washington, D.C. Tens of thousands of people showed up for the March for Life. Man, I tell you what, and you're not going to hear about it. You probably didn't hear anything on that fake news that we listened to a little bit more than we probably should. So here we're looking at the praise that's coming out of the lips of Hannah. Those who were full, notice this, those who were full have hired themselves out for bread. Tables have turned. They were once full. Now they're saying, hey, anybody got a job so I can get something to eat? And the hungry have ceased to hunger. I was the hungry one. I was hungry. I ain't hungry no more. God has. I'm going to tell you, there's a process. God will put a desire in your heart. There'll be something that will spring up deep down within you as you begin to walk in relationship with this God of the Bible. And God will put desires in your heart. God knows. And you begin to have this passion. You know, I believe that as believers, you need to have there's particular things that God will give you a passion for. It could be the youth. It could be the homeless. It could be, somewhere down the line, you just have this compassion for these people. Not that we don't have compassion for everyone, but there's just this directed compassion that we would have. And we nurture it. You gotta nurture it. You gotta let it. And then you wait for God. But as you continue to bombard it with your prayers, and then it becomes a reality. And when it becomes a reality, run with it. Just like the quarterback have handed you off the football, run with it. Take it to the goal line. Present it as an offering unto God, and that's what Hannah's doing here. Even the barren has borne 7, and she who has many children has become feeble. Is she directing this at Peninnah? I don't know. I think her character's a little bit better than that. But I think she knows that the accuser of the brethren has been jumping all over her stuff for a long time. And now she says, okay, you do not have anything to accuse me of anymore. The Lord kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and lifts up. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the beggar from the ash heap, to set them among the princes and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. God does whatever he wants, to whoever he wants, whenever he wants. But he's looking for that man and woman of faith. He's looking for that has that seed planted and will receive it and discern it as a seed, even though it might be a little cloudy. I mean, you discern, you say, well, and I'm praying about it, and I'm asking God, and sooner or later it's going to explode into life. You're going to see it. You can see it happen in your life. You have to wait forever. God will teach you how to pray. God will teach you how to be disciplined in the spiritual exercises. I really am a believer in spiritual disciplines in our life. We have to understand the basics and keep those basics as a everyday exercise in our lives. And fellowship is one of them, rubbing elbows with believers. I got my own island and I don't need nobody else. I really don't believe that's a godly attitude at all. Just trying to cover up our hurts. The Lord kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up. The Lord makes poor. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and lifts up. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the beggar from the ash heap, to set them among princes and make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's. He has set the world upon them. Watch this. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the beggar from the ash heap, to set them among princes and to make them inherit the throne of glory. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a testimony. You have a testimony. How God brought you from death into life, from destruction to completion in your life, to set them among princes, to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's. He has set the world upon them. It's like Joshua said yesterday, and I've been saying something like this for a long, long time. Jesus is not just a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger than the devil. Well, Jesus won 3 out of 4. We'll see what happens next year. No, 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 no. Not even close. Not even close, my brothers and sisters. And by faith, we understand that. And by faith, we recognize our God. And we allow him to be part of our lives. He will guard the feet of his saints, but the wicked shall be silent in darkness, for by strength no man shall prevail. There's some exceedingly great and precious promises in this prayer of Hannah. She's full. She's full of the Spirit of the living God and just pouring it out. Out of her innermost being are flowing rivers of living water. He will guard the feet of his saints, but the wicked shall be silent in darkness. For strength no man shall prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces. From heaven he will thunder against them. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces. We're seeing this happening in our days today, and this great struggle. There's a spiritual battle that is going on in your world right now. And I'm not just talking about in some foreign, I'm talking about your world. There's a spiritual battle that is going on right now. Here's promises from God for you. You might want to go back to this chapter and these verses, these 11 verses that we're talking about, and start reading them and see if God has anything that he wants to deposit in your spirit, man. That little seed that he wants to deposit, just a little seed, the little mustard seed. They can grow up to be the biggest bush in all of the garden. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces. The heaven he will thunder against them. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Let me tell you this. I just had this idea as I was reading this. We have to be discerning, my brothers and sisters. God is speaking to us all the time. It's almost like I hear people talking right back at me, even though I'm just in the studio, Just here, right now, Ernie and I here in the studio. But it's almost like I hear people saying, well, God doesn't speak to me in those ways. He does. We need to be discerning. We need to clean out our closet of all that stuff that gets in the way, all those obstacles that get in the way, so that we can clearly hear what God has to say in our lives and discern it because if not, it's a mixed one. See, the problem with a mixture is you mix a little bit of soul with a little bit of spirit. And the interpretation, the clarity isn't really there. But see, God will give us, this is what happened in Hannah's life. In Hannah's life, she wanted something so bad that she was going to do whatever it took to get it. You see her going to Shiloh. You see her going to the tabernacle. You see her pouring out her heart. You see her crying and weeping. You understand the bitterness of soul that's going through her. She wants it so bad. But in that process, there was an emptying of herself, an emptying of the old, and succumbing to the will of God. It wasn't a here's what I need and here's what I want and you got to give me this. No, God, here's what I want. But I want to give it for your purpose. I'll give it back to you. You give it to me, I'll give it back to you. And Samuel was going to be a gift to the nation of Israel. And Hannah was the person that was going to put that promise. And then beyond the promise, it was going to be the realization of the promise becoming real in her life. And she was going to put that back on the altar. And it was going to be a blessing for many, many years to the nation of Israel. We're headed in that direction. I think you're going to like this guy, Samuel. So the adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces from heaven. Then Elkanah went to the house, verse 11, at Ramah, but the child ministered to the Lord before Eli the priest. I don't think it was easy for her to leave him there. I don't think it was something to say, oh yeah, well, she's got the joy. Yeah, but at the same time, that's her boy. That's everything that she ever wanted. But she sees the bigger purpose, because within the promise is another promise. And it never really tells us this. It never really tells her that God said this man is going to be this and he's going to grow up to be that. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe I missed it in the book, but I didn't see it yet. But there's something, I believe, in her, that she knows that there's a bigger promise within the promise. There's a bigger purpose within everything that's going on, and she sees it. And she's willing to lay it all down. Now, let's see if we get a little bit deeper into chapter 2. Sorry for getting into some of the rabbit trails this morning. Now the sons of Eli were corrupt. They did not know the Lord. Okay, remember I was telling you that I didn't think that Eli was the sharpest tack in the priestly drawer. Let's see what the fruit of Eli is his sons. They were corrupt. They did not know Yahweh. Well, what are they doing there? Well, they were in that line. They were in the line of Levi through a few generations later, Aaron. And then that's where the whole priestly thing came through. The sons of Eli were corrupt. They did not know the Lord. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come with a 3-pronged flesh hook in his hand while the meat was boiling. Then he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot, and the priest would take for himself all that the flesh hook brought up. So they did in Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. So, I mean, part of the sacrifices, part of the offerings that they brought were for the priests. So the custom was that they have a 3-pronged hook. You ever seen in the meat market, we used to have 3-pronged hooks. Okay, so maybe a little bit bigger than the one that we're talking about here, but we had stuff like, we even had these trees that we would call them, with hooks, and they were about 3 foot, 4 foot long, and they had hooks on them all the way down. And those were the old days, my friend. I hope you remember when. Anyway, the custom of the priests was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest servant would come up with a 3-pronged flesh hook in his hand while the meat was boiling. Then he would thrust it into the pot, and the priest would take up for himself all that the hook brought up. So you just insert it in there and pull it out, just like you're fishing a hole in the middle of the lake in the winter in Minnesota. See what you brought up. So they did in Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Also, before they burned the fat, the priest servant would come and say to the man who sacrificed, "Give meat for roasting to the priest, for he will not take boiled meat from you but raw." So these guys were corrupt. And I mean, they're taking they're abusing the offerings with this 3-pronged hook thing, and then they come into the people and say, no, don't boil it, we like roasting our steaks, we like grilling them there on the barbecue. So before you throw it, the good parts into the pot, save a little bit of stuff raw for us. Before they burned the fat, the priest servant would come and say to the man who sacrificed, "Give meat for roasting to the priest, for he will not take boiled meat from you but raw." If the man said to him, they should really burn the fat first, and this is, my interjection here, according to the Mosaic covenant. If the man said to him, they should really burn the fat first, then you may take as much as your heart desires. He would then answer him, "No, but you must give it now, and if not, I will take it by force." So you take up your offering to Shiloh, and there was these corrupt sons of Eli. They were feathering their nest. making sure that they got the best. Skimming off the top is what they were doing. A lot of people go to church because, they know that there was something going on with that bucket that was going around. These guys were corrupt. You see God exposing these people all the time. I've seen it for years. Every once in a while, this name pops up. You say, really? If a man said to him, they should really burn the fat first. Isn't it supposed to? I thought it was supposed to burn the fat. Oh, no. That's not the way we're doing it anymore. Hophni and Phinehas said, we changed the rules. If the man said to him, this should really burn the fat first, then you take as much as your heart desires. Let's burn the fat, and after that, it's all yours. Then he would answer him, no, but you must give it now, and if not, I'll take it by force. That's when he starts, moving his what do you call it, his coat back a little bit, and you see that he's packing. Therefore, the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for the men abhorred the offering of the Lord. So Hophni and Phinehas, in all of this corrupted attitudes and platitudes that they had, God says, I'm watching you, son. I'm watching you. But, remember what we said earlier. If you're, they can't discern the voice of the Lord properly because of all this corruption that's in their life, and they didn't know the Lord. Well, I look at where's the breakdown between Eli and his sons. Why isn't Eli calling him on this? Therefore, the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, even as a child wearing a linen ephod. So in the midst of all this that's going on, Samuel, as a boy, a young boy, is ministering before the Lord. You can't tell me that he doesn't see what's going on. You can't tell me that he doesn't know what is happening in the back. Well, not even the background, it's the foreground. I mean, this is the fearless, these attitudes of the corrupted priests. But Samuel's ministering before the Lord. I mean, imagine a young little boy in his young little priestly garment, and he's doing whatever he can, just ministering to the Lord. What do I do? What do I do here? How do I do this there? And he just, and he's growing up in the presence of the Lord. Moreover, his mother used to make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. So every year, Elkanah and Hannah would come up, picnic lunch with their son, little boy, their child, I don't know how old he is now. It doesn't tell us, but and they'd bring that picnic dinner, and then they would just sit back and they would say, "Okay, son, here we got for you a new vestment for this year. You sure have grown a lot. We're going to have to make a bigger one next year." Anyway, let's put our bookmark on the 18th verse of the second chapter of 1 Samuel, and our plan is to be back here tomorrow at 10 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock looking at the book of 1 Samuel.